Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the second night of the Spring Rights Literary Festival 2020 in November. I'm Robin Schwartz. I'm the Program and Grant Director of the Community Arts Partnership of Tompkins County. Spring Rights is one of our programs and services that support Tompkins County arts and artists. Our website, if you want to check it out, I'll put it in the chat. It's artspartner.org. And you can see everything that we do. And I'll also put the springrights.org website in there as well. I assume you've all been to the springrights.org website because you registered for this event. We have 20 other free events over the next weeks. So I hope you join us for as many as you like. I have a co-host on the call, Kristen Reed, is from Ithaca College. If for any reason I disappear from the call, which happens sometimes, Kristen, you will take over, but it probably won't happen, don't worry. We also have 8 writing workshops. There were 7, I added another one that take place from December through March. Check those out, also free, amazing. And I want to thank our sponsors for this event. It is Ithaca College, Wegmans, the Odyssey Bookstore on Green Street, M&T Bank, and the Ithaca Marriott. I also want to thank our funders, New York State Council on the Arts and Poets and Writers. If you would like to lend support to our annual fund, that's the Community Arts Partnership Annual Fund, that would be amazing. Funds support all that we do at the Community Arts Partnership with our tiny staff of 2 people. I am 50% of the staff. Any amount is fabulous, and I will put a link to PayPal in the chat. Couple of things, you will all be on mute throughout the event. And as we go through the event, if we're going to do Q&A, we'll tell you all about that when we get to it. You'll probably be typing questions. You will be typing questions into chat, and we'll talk about that when we get there. Now there's another event after this that starts at 7:15. It's the same Zoom link. It's the panel Total Submission, Understanding the Kinks and Quirks of Literary Magazines. There will be a bit of a break between the 2 events. You could just continue to hang out on the call. You could go take a break and come back, pop in and out, whatever you like. So without further ado, we will start our first event, and I'm going to turn the program to Yael, and I am going to spotlight you. Here you are. There you are.
Oh, you're muted.
Wait. I got to figure this out. I'm so sorry. I'm looking for these like 3 little dots that are supposed to show up next to your name that aren't there. Kristen, help me unmute her.
Did you get a thing that says I asked you to unmute?
I think I'm
There you are
now.
Sorry, everybody, for my ignorance. Take it away.
I feel heard now. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Yael Saar, and I am the creator of Motherhood is a Joke. It was born out of the Mama's Comfort Camp support network, where moms from around the world and across the street support each other through the trials and tribulations of motherhood. As you can imagine, the pandemic has brought us new trials and tribulations. So a lot of mothers are really turning to the question, this is all going to be funny someday. And today we're going to have 5 mothers share their stories. The mission of Motherhood is a Joke was to turn the maternal struggles into comedy gold. And I hope you will agree that we're all kind of like Rapunzels. We were able to do that. I'd like to thank Robin and the Community Arts Partnership for making this happen against tall odds, and also to express gratitude for the generous grant that supported the program. Motherhood is a Joke was also funded by the Women's Fund at the Community Foundation of Tompkins County. Robin, I'm not sure you know that we have a bit of serendipity right now, because exactly a year ago today at 6 p.m., I walked into the kitchen theater in order to set up the chairs and the snacks and the food and the tea for the first meeting of Motherhood is a Joke. And in that moment, we had 15 mothers of various ages and stages, ethnic backgrounds. We had a mother of a newborn, we had a grandmother, we had about, I think, 5 religions among us. It was really cool. And I, at that point, I didn't know most of the participants, and I was really curious to see that whether we're going to be able to turn the disparate experiences into what would be common and what would be different between us. And we did find a lot in common. I would really like to thank the mothers involved, that they trusted that in the shared struggles we will be able to step up from that painful, scary place all the way to the spotlight and the microphone. I especially would like to thank Alison Fromme, who was my co-conspirator from the first, from the idea, from conception, all the way to here. And also a huge gratitude to Shira Evergreen of Uplifted Ithaca, who is one of our writer comics and is also the filmmaker that is helping us make the Motherhood is a Joke documentary. Shira is a dream to work with, and we're so lucky to have you. Let's see, what else do I need to tell you? Okay, so guess what happens when 15 very different mothers come together to write comedy? We all pee our pants. And for 5 months, we met at the kitchen theater, which is, for moms to finally get out of the house and meet at a kitchen. It's just what happens. And we met for writing workshops and bathroom breaks. And our comedy showcase sold out before we even advertised the tickets to the general public. And we were so excited, and we're getting ready to book another larger venue for our next event. And then guess what happens when a global pandemic hits just days before your sold out performance? Yeah. You hold on to dear life. At first, we used Zoom to support each other, and then we just disappeared for a while. We got radio silence while we figured out how to keep our head above water. And very often it felt like it was just barely a nostril above water. And we weren't sure if we're going to be able to continue. And then we got the email from you, Robin, that Spring Writes is happening. And that was like a little much needed kick in the behind that, you know what, let's get this together, because it really was helpful for us to get back to our, to Zoom meetings and mine the new struggles into new writing, basically, because our acts from before the pandemic just seemed a lot less relevant. I also would like to share to highlight that it was Shira who got us in gear to actually have a live performance, which we did at the amphitheater at the Lehman Alternative Community School, and that took place the day after the elections was called, and a beautiful sunny day. And we have that recorded on film. And that film will be a documentary that showcases a lot more than the actual performance. This was a whole year of process of going, from struggles to basically growing wings for us to shine on stage. And we're very excited to be on this little stage today and to be sharing the story of the program and of the participants in the upcoming film. We're not sure exactly when the film will be ready. We will keep you posted. And any questions that we don't get to answering today at the Q&A will very much inform our conversations as we are finishing up the documentary. So please feel free to ask us all sorts of questions. I should also mention that when we started with 15 mothers and we ended up with 6 that performed in our previous live performance. And so, of course, this really doesn't feel good to us, and therefore we are not like seeing this stage as the end of the program. We are planning on continuing and featuring the other writers who were not able to participate in future Motherhood is a Joke events. And it became clear that this is a necessary, almost like way of therapy, that turning the struggles into comedy is so, so healing. And so we're planning a second season that will probably start in January or February, and like we'll put that out in front of everyone when that's available. A word of warning. The following contains profanity and sexual innuendo. We have been stuck at home with little children, so of course we're bursting with F-bombs. Also, considering that this period that we have been, creating our writing has been so fraught, not only the pandemic, but also the election, the fires, the protests everywhere. Our writing, the comedy that we bring to you became highly political, which is not a coincidence considering everything that's going in the world, but also it was actually one of the expressed intentions of the program. Because don't let the fact that mothers come from a loving place confuse you. We are angry. So we are very fortunate to be able to turn anger together with laughter into something that we hope will actually change the way people see the world, the way people spend their money, time, and attention, and yes, also the way people vote. So that was the introduction to the program, and now I will move on to the actual act that I performed in our showcase. This is not the entire act, just so we have some time for the Q&A, but the entire act will be part of the Motherhood is a Joke film. Motherhood is a Joke is the censored version of the name of the program. The full name of the program is Motherhood is a Fucking Joke. And that's because mothers are fucked. Literally, that is the most common path to motherhood. Although in Ithaca, there are other well-trodden paths. So if mothers are fucked, what does that make fathers? Motherfuckers. Not all fathers get to be motherfuckers. If they're sometimes having a baby destroys your sex life, so sorry about that, people. But I have a second child, so that's walking living proof that my husband is indeed a sexy motherfucker. But that was before COVID. Now that the children are home all day and up at all hours of the night, we are never alone. And I miss sex. I miss sex almost as much as I miss that moment when the door closes and all the people I love are on the other side, on their way to work and school. And I'm alone in my quiet kitchen. I really miss those days when the only things that I had to ignore in order to get my work done were the dishes and the laundry. And if I ever had writer's block, I could get unstuck and get my creative juices flowing in my favorite way, which is some self-pleasuring. Gosh, I miss orgasms. Please don't let the fact that I'm working from home confuse you into thinking that I am not an essential worker. All mothers are essential workers. All mothers are the mothers of all essential workers. Long hours, no sick days, and no hazard pay or overtime pay. Actually, no pay at all. Where the fuck is our paycheck? The patriarchy treats mothers like dirt, which isn't really surprising considering that the capitalist patriarchy also treats our planet as if we have a few extra planets in our back pocket. Hey, you guys, stop. We don't have an oopsies planet. Imagine if moms went on strike. How long would the species last if mothers withheld our wombs and our labor? And by labor, I don't just mean giving birth. Mothers wash, fold, shop, chop, cook, serve, clear, load, unload, rinse, repeat, find the other shoe, find the other mitten, kiss the boo-boos, give the pep talks, manage the social calendar every single day and night and weekend and holidays. Don't get me started on the holidays. And we do it all for free in the name of love? Fascinating creatures. And like nurses and teachers in the pandemic, our giving is never enough. Mothers are the glue that holds society together. Where the fuck is our paycheck? And because of COVID, a lot fewer mothers have paychecks. Joblessness and homelessness are hurting mothers first. No joke, no punchline. I'm a Jewish mama, but I don't like children. Don't get me wrong, my kids are the best kids ever, but except when they're the worst kids ever, which is really true for all kids everywhere. But I'm really not gaga for babies, so if you wanted to torture me, you would make me a preschool teacher or forced me to homeschool my kids. Thank you, COVID. And as a Jewish mama who doesn't like children, my saving grace was that I love feeding people, but that's another thing that COVID took away from me. Gosh, feeding people sucks. I don't understand why my children think that they have to come to me when they're hungry. What do you mean you're hungry? I distinctly remember feeding you yesterday. The only person I really enjoyed feeding during COVID was Anna Kellis, a local progressive who ran for the state assembly. I wanted to donate to her campaign a lot more money than I had to give. So instead, I combined produce with labor and love into another meaningful currency, home-cooked meals. I dropped off food about twice a week, and look, she won. Yes, she's an expert in epidemiology and nutrition, and that probably helped. But come on, guys, I dropped off chocolate black beans and coconut rice. Isn't that a secret sauce? Of course, when I cooked for Anna, I also cooked for my family. So now that the election is over, we're back to, do you know that popcorn is a whole grain? Being stuck at home with the people I love has the inevitable effect of making me hate them a little. And of course, there's the Scrooge of distance learning. Fuck distance learning. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for up-close and personal learning, proximity learning. Forget algebra. How about we learn how to chew quietly, how to load the dishwasher properly, how to put the toilet paper in the dispenser correctly, and there is only one right way for that. Of course, there's also the most important skill, which is recognizing when, that look that the people you love get on their face when they really desperately need you to shut the fuck up. Guess which one I'm working on. And can my kids please relearn how to go to bed early? I really miss sex. As you can tell, my nerves are shot, which means that when we play board games, oh my God, so many board games. Are we bored yet? My smart kids let me win. because mama needs a win, a really, really big win, like the presidency. Because really, it is not too much to ask for leaders who would put family and community ahead of corporations and billionaires. And, you know, leaders who will not be into power grabbing or pussy grabbing. That is not too much to ask. It's high time we mother up. What if you could only get elected if you demonstrated your ability to raise a human being? And being a papa isn't enough. In fact, every single president in the last century was a father. They don't call it the patriarchy for nothing. So it is clear that we don't need to force anyone into parenting, but it's maybe lawyers and businessmen should not be the only one running countries. Let's require that before people run for office, you had to prove an attitude of motherhood. And how would you do that? You would teach public school, or work as a hospital nurse or a drug counselor, or you would grow food in a family farm or a community garden. And of course, the answer is all of the above. Give us a few years of your life before you try running the country. I would love to see a commander-in-chief who is a Black grandmother who started her career as a kindergarten teacher. Yeah. Earlier this month, I got to vote for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. An interesting difference between the previous president and the current president and the president-elect is that when the Donald is challenged by a woman, he mocks her mercilessly. And when Biden was challenged by a woman, he made her his vice president. And Kamala is a stepmother who is adored by her children. And I was raised by a stepmother, so I have the utmost respect. And we can already see what, you know, the way she would like address Trump supporters who are not willing to get out of the way. Like, imagine her face as she goes, "You get what you get and you don't get upset." We need you, Kamala Mamala. It's time for a real clean up, everybody, everywhere. Clean up, everybody, do your share. Whew. So thank you, everyone. That was my act. I'm going to pass the microphone to Alison Fromme, who's an Ithaca writer who's been my co-conspirator in this program. And you can also listen to Alison here tomorrow at the same time at 6 p.m. as part of a presentation about writing while parenting, which I'm definitely going to sign in for. Take it away, Alison.
Thanks, Yael. All right, so back in March, I remember all these people, all these non-parent people, were talking about their hours and hours of free time in quarantine and how they were going to read books. My kids are 10 and 13 now, so I did have a little free time, unlike parents of newborns and toddlers. Reading seemed like a good way to stop my brain from spiraling into a pit of despair. I had the perfect book already on my shelf. It's nonfiction. It's called Down Girl. It's about misogyny. The book is pretty brilliant. It's written by a Cornell professor, Kate Mann. And I had the book because I like to keep up with current events. With all the pussy grabbing going on for the past 4 years, it seemed like something I should try to understand. As you can imagine, the book is a tough read. It's vomit-inducing, really, how it lays out the state of the world. I totally recommend it. Sometimes vomiting for a good cause is worth it, like morning sickness. The book taught me a lot, like the difference between sexism and misogyny. Sexism is all the beliefs that uphold the patriarchy, and misogyny, it's not women hating. Trump says he loves women, right? No, misogyny is like the law enforcement branch of the patriarchy. Kate Mann calls it a shock collar used to keep women in line. Shit, sorry. This has all gotten very dark. I think I need a horse breath. Let's keep pushing. For example, sexism is like, if you have a uterus, that's proof you're naturally meant to be a mother above all else. And misogyny, for example, is all the laws and subtle forms of coercion that force women to use their uteruses. Uteri? Even if they don't want to. Now we have a woman, Amy, what's her face, on the Supreme Court who supports these laws. Just look at her record. Did you see the confirmation hearing? These Republicans were falling all over themselves, praising her for being a mom of 7 kids, 2 adopted from Haiti and 1 with Down syndrome, all while pursuing this ambitious career. It's true, and it's awe-inspiring. But you know what the subtext was? If she can do it, so can everyone. Proof that all the barriers have been broken down, and if you're struggling, it's on you. Oh, Jesus, I can't even memorize a 5-minute almost comedy act. Amy was also part of that COVID super spreader event. Remember how Trump was all over hydroxychloroquine as a way to cure COVID? Hydroxychloroquine is used to treat autoimmune disorders, and it has been my daily drug of choice for the past 10 years. I mean, I have to admit, it is a little flattering that the president knows my drug by name, and he likes it so much he wants to take it from me. I want to give a shout out to all my chronic illness sisters out there. This pandemic, this political climate is such a joy when you have a debilitating disease. But thinking about the Supreme Court makes me think of RBG, and that makes me happy. Can we just sit with her memory for a minute? Hey, you know what? She wore a collar. It was like an anti-shock collar, like a force field of protection for all women made from her own power and grace and intelligence. That's the collar I want. That's the collar I wish I had during my first birth. You know those TV birth scenes? A woman in labor, screaming in pain and acting totally irrational? Hilarious, right? There's a young, good-looking doctor telling the woman what to do. Hysterical. It wasn't exactly like that for me. My wrists were strapped down to the operating room table with Velcro cuffs. In case you're wondering, I'm not into that kind of thing. The cuffs were hospital protocol in Berkeley, California for the so-called emergency C-section. I was shocked to find myself restrained in them. It's weird. I thought the way things went was first you go crazy and then you get strapped down. But in my case, it was the opposite. All I wanted was the perfect birth, a warm tub, low lights, Enya, evidence-based protocols. I didn't realize that I should have hired a bodyguard. I mean, a doula. The birth was like some mashup of magic tricks. First, there was the sawing the woman in half, and then there was the pulling the rabbit out of the hat. Ta-da, here's the baby. And oh wait, there's some other stuff in here. Your sense of humor, your sanity, poof, we'll make those disappear. The whole experience of becoming a mother in the operating room was really earth-shattering for me. And just to be clear, shattering the ground you stand on is not a good thing. It wasn't because I wanted to control the birth process. I wanted to control the decision-making process around my body, God damn it. Lots of people responded to the recent misogyny and racism in our country by becoming activists or running for office, like Stacey Abrams. Thank you, Stacey Abrams. Even I ran for office, president actually, of the PTA. And not just any PTA, but the special education PTA. We advocate for kids with disabilities, including invisible disabilities. It's a pretty powerful position. And I'm hanging on to that presidential power. In fact, we were supposed to have an election in May, but you know, with the pandemic, the chances of email voter fraud, I just canceled it. I hereby claim another term. We all know you've never needed a cock to run the PTA, and you sure as hell shouldn't need one to run the country. Thank you. So now we'll pass it over to Kate Kate Frazier is a communications director for an environmental nonprofit and a creative writer who believes in the power of both press releases and poetry to change the world.
Thanks, Allison. Hey, everyone. So tonight, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite mamas, and that's Mother Earth. Can we just take a minute and give it up for Mother Nature? Yeah, she's great. My husband and I work for her, actually. We both work for an environmental causes, and it's great. It's really great to have a girl boss. And also, it feels just really good to be able to distill our jobs really easily for our 3-year-old daughter and feel super good about it. She asks, "What are you doing, Mom? What do you and Daddy do for work?" And we say, "Oh, honey, Daddy helps birds and Mommy helps Earth." It's sweet. We're freaking adorable, trust me. But, based on how things are going for the planet, I'm a little afraid she's going to grow up and think we did a really shitty job. Because if you haven't noticed, Mama Earth is in pretty rough shape. And it's getting worse. And she's pissed. Seriously. Could she be any clearer? And it's got to be really frustrating. I get it, having floods and fires and extinctions. And you also have this bunch of jerks telling you, okay, fine, your climate is changing, but it's not man-made. And Earth is kind of like Kamala at the vice presidential debate saying, "Excuse me, I'm speaking." And I do respect that. I respect her need to speak, but it's hard because as a mom, I'd prefer to live without the specter of doom of climate change over everything, and just go about my daily life as a toddler parent and do just the normal everyday family stuff, like taking my daughter on masked play dates with agreed upon distancing rules, or playing who can hold their breath the longest without touching anything at Wegmans. You all play that, right? Really fun. It did get a little bit better though, a couple of weeks ago, as we voted to get rid of one unnatural disaster. But still, there's this, this old school threat hanging over everything. And for me, there's this dramatic booming voice in my head. It's my internal monologue. And just FYI for everyone, for me, like just picture the voice of a young, hot, bearded Al Gore. Yeah. And it's so loud. This voice is so loud, it even drowns out the Frozen soundtrack. And if you have little kids, you know how loud that is. And we'll just be home, doing this normal, fun toddler stuff, like playing doctor to all my baby's dolls, who all have COVID, in the middle of climate collapse, or painting pumpkins as life as we know it crumbles. But we try to stay positive. We focus on the positive and, everything that we can do to help turn things around. Still, it's hard because it affects, even the most personal decisions, like whether or not to have another baby. And, every time we even think about having sex on the brink of climate apocalypse, we have to have this, pre-game analysis in which we weigh how much we're willing to crank up the crazy in our lives, give up all sleep, time, money, my body to raise a wild card human, and then throw in a little climate anxiety and a pandemic, and it's hot. No, really, it's getting hot. And I don't really know honestly why we debate it. I'm 42, so having unprotected sex at this point is kind of like saying I'm interested in an event on Facebook. It's probably not going to happen. Also, just kidding. There aren't any events. Except spring rates. Thank you. Thanks, Robin. But the thing is, I really do want to be touched, just not by anyone in my family. I want to bump into a stranger at a bar or on a bus and say, "Excuse me." That's hot. That sounds good. Seriously though, this pandemic and the lack of social connection that has come with it, it's been hard. It's been really hard on our only child, who absolutely wants a sibling. But again, we try to stay positive. We say, "Honey, don't worry. We live in the Finger Lakes. One day soon, we'll have a house full of climate refugees and you'll always have someone to play with." I do feel very fortunate to live here. We're far from the ocean. It's not too hot. There's plenty of fresh water and wine and cider and beer. Most people don't think it's a great idea to put a sociopath in charge of the country. And, because of this, I think we really have the luxury and the responsibility to help fix this mess. And in this, toddlers, I think they are our perfect allies. They're natural protesters, like pants to fossil fuels, not a far stretch. They can do it. And they really commit to their beliefs. Like if you come over to dinner, and sorry, you can't come to dinner, we're in a pandemic. But if you did, and my daughter tells you, shh, the forks are sleepy. Don't touch a fork, like seriously, just don't do it. They won't back down. And perhaps most importantly, they do have these incredible, beautiful imaginations and a desire to help people who are hurting. And we're really going to need that. Thanks, everyone. And I have the pleasure now to turn it over to our last comic for tonight, Shira Evergreen, who is a filmmaker, a graphic designer, a musician, and a proud reclaimer of the dad joke. Off to you, Shira.
Are you unmuted now?
I am now, yes.
Oh, good.
I was trying, but it did
All
not.
the, all the little symbols on the screen just seem to disappear when I need them. Go forth.
Thank you. This is a picture of Cayuga Lake behind me, by the way, that I took just a couple weeks ago, and it's obscuring the large amount of clutter on this wall. This is the only room in the house where I can close the door, so yeah. Anyways, thank you guys, and I will begin. How is everybody doing? Yeah, it's been quite a November. Holy shit. I feel like that was the most slow burn election I've ever binge watched. Just so many nights waiting up late, waiting for the results to just tip over the edge. And then it happened finally. I mean, kind of, right? I think it did. Can we all just emit into our muted computers some kind of collective sigh of relief or howl or whatever you need to do? I'm gonna just go for it. Oh, yes, that feels good. It does feel really good, but I also feel like the work continues, very, very much so. And as a parent of a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, the work definitely continues. It just continues and continues on a daily basis. But as they get older, things have been getting a little bit easier. For example, we can never get them to sit together with us during dinner time and actually have a conversation and sit still. But the other nights, we had a breakthrough. It was a miracle. We all sat together and we had an amazing time. What was the topic that captured all of our imaginations? Very simple. How would you like to punish Donald Trump? It just something about the topic got us all able to sit still and converse. So my son, the 7-year-old, he just jumped right in, and it got very dark very quickly. His plan, and he was very clear about it, would be to put Trump in a boat in the middle of the ocean, nowhere, no food, no fishing supplies or anything. And then this is a detail that he really emphasized, totally naked. And that, so basically he's going to die of exposure. This is not a good scene. So my partner and I take turns and we get into like a lengthy discussion about restorative justice and the idea that we need a nationwide Truth and Reconciliation Commission and reparations. Basically, we don't want him to be a vengeful person. And then my daughter, who's 4, she's been kind of processing everything and she goes, aha, I got it. We will put him in a very large trap. And on top of the trap, we will put a very heavy book. And I was like, yes, you nailed it, both literally and metaphorically. I think that's the perfect punishment. So being a parent during a global pandemic has been interesting and challenging. We haven't had childcare basically for this entire period of time. We have had a lot of extra quality time together, a lot, which is nice. And we've been managing okay. At the very beginning, when everybody was freaking out about toilet paper and things were first shutting down and people were freaked out about not being able to go to concerts and stuff, my partner and I were like, we're kind of introverts and we have this like bidet attachment to our toilet. So we're good, just for a while. But it is exhausting, and social distancing with little people is very challenging, because my kids, at least, they just really want to connect with other people. And I get it. It's hard to not do that for months and have your whole world be turned upside down. We did a lot of hiking with them out in nature, especially early in the pandemic, in order to get away from people. But they were just so desperate for human interaction that they were like always on the lookout for somebody around the trail. And my daughter, she realized that people were just going to be passing by quickly. So she developed like the equivalent of an elevator pitch, but for the hiking trail. So she'd like cross paths with somebody for just a second and be like, hello, I'm Kesha and I'm 4 and I love unicorns. And I ride a scooter. And my favorite color is purple. Yeah, so I've just worked really hard we both have, me and my partner have worked really hard to keep them safe, but still stimulated. They've had some outdoor distance dance classes, and I've been taking them to these pop-up roller derbies and to the skate park. And we've also worked very, very hard to keep COVID out of the house. Remember at the beginning of the pandemic when we were individually cleaning each cereal box and bottle and everything from the grocery store? That was a really fun phase. Yeah, but there's one thing that I have not been able to keep out of our house before the pandemic or post-pandemic, and that is glitter. Glitter, it's a big issue. My children and my husband, I don't know why they cannot resist the shit. It's like crack to them, and it's driving me crazy. And it's hard because I'm part of the LGBT community, and to me, Freddie Mercury is a god, glitter, pride parade, it's like supposed to be in my DNA. But I hate glitter. And I keep finding it all over my children's bodies in places that it is not meant to be. And it is driving me crazy. It's so beautiful, but it's so evil. And somebody was like, oh, let's take just tiny little bits of plastic and spread it over the surface of everything, and it will never biodegrade. Glitter, it has the word litter in it. It's telling you what it is. And the problem is that it's not just for crafting. They put it on the surfaces of holiday cards, on toys. It's like there's just loose glitter everywhere on the fabric of dresses. I feel like there's somebody in a factory somewhere who's just like, it's not shiny enough. No, still not shiny enough. We need to make sure there are copious amounts of loose glitter on this item so that it explodes on the person's house. And I try to instill a glitter ban, and it just hasn't been effective. It's like there's a black market through which glitter items keep coming into my house. And it's hard because I don't like to crush spirits, but that is sometimes what is necessary. And I'm queer. I come from glitter culture. There's actually a tradition of queer activists glitter bombing bigots as a way to shame them for homophobic policies, which I think is fucking brilliant. So like in 2011, Newt Gingrich was having a book signing, and this activist waited in line as if he was having a book sign. And then when he got to the front of the line, he opened his book and was like, fuck you, you're homophobic. And he just poured like a huge amount of glitter all over the table and all over Newt Gingrich's suit. And I watched it and it was horrifying. It's like, there's a video of this, you can watch it online, because I was like, you have to burn that suit, Newt Gingrich, because you are never getting the glitter off of it. I saw like this little like assistant come over part way through the video, and he's like trying to like get it off Gingrich's coat, and it's just, you can just see it glimmering. And I can guarantee you if you could go back to that room, this was in 2011, if you could go back to that room today, I guarantee you there's still glitter in that carpet. So yeah, glitter. And you know, I mentioned that I'm of the LGBT community. At this point, you might be wondering, which letter am I? Am I an L? Could I be a B? Ooh, maybe a T? So it's a funny story. My partner and I have been together for about 20 years, since our college days. And we were a lesbian couple for about 15 of those years. And then we had our first child. And then about 2 years later, my partner came out as a trans man. And so on paper now, that makes us a heterosexual couple. So in other words, we're so gay, we're straight. Some people get really upset when you ask them to use a different pronoun for somebody. And I just have to say, get over it. Because if my kid at the age of 2 could rewire his brain to call his parent Papa, from calling him Papa instead of Mama, then you can learn to call somebody they, or he or she, or the Z, or magical unicorn, whatever they want. I believe in you. So because of my queer perspective, I'm just very sensitive to gender stuff. And it's been interesting navigating that as a parent. For a long time, my son got misgendered a lot because he had long hair. And that, you know, brought up all kind of interesting questions about like, what is a boy? What should they look like? Why does hair define one's gender? But what actually has ended up being harder for me is that my daughter has decided to embrace like every single cliche of feminine aesthetic. She's just all, and she's like, purple and pink and unicorns and princesses and mermaids and princess unicorn narwhals. And it's just really hard for me, but I have to support her gender expression. And I just have to resist the urge to tell people on the street, it's not me. Like, she wanted to wear the pink. I did not enforce gender norms upon her. Just look at me. Look at the sweatshirt. This is a men's shirt. Look at my shoes. You can't see them right now, but they're not pink. But you know, you have to just let your kid be and support them and have whatever gender expression they want. At this point, I'm sure you're aware of this whole gender reveal party phenomenon that started a few years back. I find the concept really disturbing because for many reasons, but for one is that you can watch videos online of people having these parties where they do a gender reveal and it turns out to be a girl. There's like pink balloons, etc. And then it cuts to like a father or a son visibly crying, and they're like super disappointed because it's going to be a girl. It's like, what the fuck is going on there? It's like they've already put so many assumptions on what this person's going to be, what their future gender identity is going to be, and that they're not going to want to like play sports or whatever, fulfill whatever heteronormative fantasy they have. And it's just really disappointing. I think it would be fine if we called it something more accurate, like a genitalia reveal party. We're having a penis! Or even more accurate would be like a chromosome reveal party. So you could like go to the store and get like an X and a Y, or, you know, 2 X's or whatever, just be really accurate. Maybe you have a chromosome Y abnormality, you know, we're having 2 X's. And so if these gender reveal parties weren't destructive enough on an individual level, on a family level, you might have heard that a gender reveal party was actually responsible for starting one of the huge wildfires in California in September. Remember September? Yeah, so some people set off some blue explosives and they started a fire that destroyed thousands of acres in California and which forced many people to flee their homes. I think that's taking toxic masculinity to a whole other level. It's a boy. Oh, fuck, shit. Yeah. But you know what's actually even crazier than the scenario is that this is not the first time it happened. If you look it up, in 2017, a mere 2 years ago, another gender reveal party explosion in Arizona started a fire that burned 47,000 acres. So yeah, so all of human civilization and history and the Renaissance and all of it led up to this moment, not once, but twice. Come on. I think we can do better as a society, as a civilization. So in the spirit of some of the comics that came before me, I would like to formally apologize to Mama Earth, to Mother Earth, on behalf of humanity, for the glitter, for the gender reveal parties, and for Donald Trump. But I can assure you, he will not last as long as the glitter. Thank you.
What do I do now? Do I put all of you on the screen?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Okay.
And if we could also bring up on the screen
Kenneth
our
is
beloved
here.
Kenneth Maclaurin, the funniest man in Ithaca.
Who am I missing? Allison. I see Allison. And now we're finding Kenneth. Hi, Kenneth. Oops.
So Kenneth was our comedy writing teacher and was the sole papa in the mother soup of our program. And his wife, Singtrice, was also helping us co-facilitate for writing songs, comedic or otherwise. We didn't quite get to songs though, with all the interruptions that we've had.
So Kenneth, if you're on the call, he's not responding.
Okay.
Kenneth, I just made you a co-host. So if you want to make yourself big and unmute yourself, you can do it. He might have stepped away.
Okay.
So you should all be unmuted. And go for it.
So I'm not sure if we've had any questions from the audience, but we got a lot of very sweet responses. Thank you everyone for your responses to our comedy. Is there a question that anyone would like to offer?
Yeah, let's ask questions. You'll be horrified to know I don't know who Princess Unicorn Narwhal is. Are you horrified?
That is a generic stand-in for a conglomeration of all things feminine and beautiful. So don't worry.
Okay.
You're not missing a cultural icon.
Okay.
Or maybe you are.